So today we're going to cover a lot of ground, from navigating complex regulations in the CPG industry to understanding the intricacies of RP 755 in oil and gas and NRC FRMS in nuclear. We'll also discuss how Indeavor software can help you balance compliance with business goals and prepare for the future of regulatory compliance. Our agenda also includes a deep dive into regulatory challenges in the CPG industry, understanding the complexities of those we just discussed, the RP 755 and NRC FRMS regulations, balancing compliance with business objectives, the future of regulatory compliance, and a product demonstration. Joining me today are two experts in the field: Jeff, a former PepsiCo plant director and now an Indeavor account manager, and Lakshay Gupta, Indeavor's head sales engineer. Jeff, can you share your experience with regulatory compliance in the CPG industry and how it impacted your role as a plant executive?
I can, Ryan, and thanks for having me today. And with the high visibility of globally recognized brand names, specifically in the CPG industry, fair treatment of employees, adhering to ethical standards, and regulatory compliance are more important than ever. In my experience as a site leader, I was obligated to uphold compliance standards governed by either collective bargaining agreements, environmental health and safety maximum hours work restrictions, or overtime rules and regulations mandated by the state and local governments. Whether regulated by a specific contract language, organization operating principles, or site safety standards, adhering to regulatory compliance requirement was an important part of our culture. As a facility director, I held the ultimate responsibility for compliance and found that having a system of record to hold myself and my team accountable was absolutely critical to our success.
Thank you. Lakshay, as head sales engineer, can you give us an overview of how Indeavor software helps organizations address regulatory compliance?
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me on this webinar as well. I echo what Jeff said earlier, and that Indeavor software is designed to perform compliance validation at the point of planning. And that's going to be a very key objective that we're going to touch on throughout our discussion today. This also includes automating several functions such as scheduling, timekeeping, reporting, etc. And this not only reduces the risk of errors, it also helps mitigate violations proactively, which means you want to be able to make sure these violations do not happen in the first place. And it is designed to help free up time by doing that for HR and operations team to focus on other strategic initiatives.
Thanks, guys. Now, I want to jump into the importance of real-time alerts. Jeff, in your experience, can you talk about the benefits of real-time alerts that flag potential compliance violations during the scheduling process?
Absolutely. In today's fast-paced manufacturing environment, time is a critical component to success of any organizations. The best organizations operate in the now and can't afford to correct mistakes in the past. Without real-time notifications, you risk committing an error that will lead to potential grievances, compliance violations, or employee relation complaints. If you have the insight to prevent it in the present, your risk of violations are near zero.
Awesome. Now, moving on to enforcing labor and safety standards. Lakshay, can you discuss some of the strategies for enforcing labor and safety standards to protect both the employees and, say, the business?
Sure thing. Enforcing standards, in my opinion, requires a combination of technology and human oversight. Our software can automate many of these checks, like I mentioned before, such as ensuring employees are not exceeding their maximum work hours or they're receiving minimum time off between shifts. However, it's also important to have clear policies and procedures in place and the proper governance in place to provide regular training to employees and making sure these rules are being kept up to date. Endeavor also has roles and responsibilities based visibility and oversight. And what that means is the right persona with the right level of access is going to be able to enforce the right information at that point of planning. So whoever is involved in these processes get the right level of information, exactly what they need to oversee, making their jobs a little bit easier, as well as ensuring that those streams aren't accidentally crossed.
On the topic of, say, automating adherence to compliance rules, can you give us some examples of how Indeavor software automates adherence to compliance rules?
Yes, great question. And that's a huge part of what we do here. Our software can automatically enforce rules related to maximum hours worked, overtime limitations, break requirements, etc. And it can also help tracking time off, ensuring that employees are taking their allotted vacation and sick leave according to your organizational rules. We'll get to see some of these rules later on, but to summarize, Endeavor has the capability to ensuring all facets of operations kind of speak to each other in a more jointed manner versus in these various silos that have to kind of coordinate amongst each other.
Understood. Well, let's talk about like reducing the risk of non-compliance. Jeff, can you share some practical examples of how Indeavor software has helped reduce the risk of non-compliance with, say, like complex labor regulations and industry standards?
Absolutely. And this topic here is becoming more important each and every day. And an employee's work-life balance, pay, overall mental well-being are the leading drivers of employee satisfaction. One of the most complex aspects of labor management in most organizations is overtime scheduling. Whether it's contract language, overtime caps, temporary worker restrictions, federal regulations, they must all be taken into account when filling labor resource gaps. By leveraging Indeavor as our compliance management platform, we were able to automate the overtime scheduling process, thus reducing those grievances and compliance violations. With the heavy lifting being performed through automation, the end results were much more consistent, met all compliance standards, and left additional time to focus on the business objectives, which was the important part of what they did each and every day.
Got it. So let's delve into some of those industry-specific examples. Jeff, in the CPG industry, what were some of the primary regulatory issues that you've become accustomed to dealing with?
Yeah, it's a good point, right? So CPG organizations, they have a mixed bag of compliance regulations that they deal with each and every day. One of the most common is collective bargaining agreements. And that can be a complex set of rules and regulations. These regulations often make it a challenge to react quickly in those fast-paced environments. Last minute call-offs, someone leaving early, someone doesn't show up, no call, no show to work, all present unique challenges to aligning the labor resources that you need. If your process is manual, the risk of grievances or employee complaints go up exponentially. Inconsistency, rule or restriction interpretation or even application, or just blatant disregard for the process because you're overwhelmed by its complexity will surely impact your adherence to regulatory standards.
Lakshay, in the same sense, in the oil and gas and maybe like nuclear or energy industries, what are some unique regulatory challenges?
Yeah, I love what Jeff said about CPG because a lot of that applies to this industry as well. After all, labor planning problems are labor planning problems at the end of the day. But there are, of course, nuances and some regulatory industry requirements that we have to keep in mind with oil and gas and nuclear. In these industries, there are strict safety regulations in place to protect workers and environments. And the granularity of how these rules can apply across functional lanes is the biggest challenge. So not only do you have these complex rules such as NRC's fatigue resource management regulations, but there are also often small nuances across these functional lanes that I mentioned. For example, there are different rules between when you're in an online operations versus outage mode, or different groups such as operations versus maintenance can have differences in requirements based on the hours they work, based on the days they work, and also based on the work and the type of work they're performing.
Understood. Now, a hot topic today is SMETA compliance. SMETA is an acronym for SEDEX Members Ethical Trade Audit and is an audit standard which helps you to understand standards of labor, health, and safety, environmental performance, and ethics within your own operations. SMETA is designed to help protect those workers from unsafe conditions, overwork, discrimination, low pay, and forced labor is becoming increasingly important, right, for many organizations. So how can Indeavor software help with, say, SMETA compliance?
Yeah, I understand the complexity and the regulations that go into making sure something like that is compliant to your operations. And our software can help by automating many of the tasks required for SMETA certification, such as tracking employee hours, ensuring that the workplace policies are being followed and fully auditable, facilitating data collection, streamlining audit process electronically. When I've worked in different environments, including CPG, energy, oil and gas, I've realized that there are a lot of common streams and themes across some of these compliance measures that we've discussed thus far. And Indeavor is an incredibly configurable tool that not only automates and provides you with better ways of doing things, but also provides you with this auditable compliance platform that is fully reportable.
So let's delve a little deeper into those specific regulatory requirements, say in those highly regulated industries. Jeff, maybe can you elaborate on the role of RP 755 in ensuring worker safety and public health in, say, the oil and gas and nuclear energy industries?
Absolutely. RP 755 is a fatigue risk management system used for personnel in the refining and petrochemical industries. These recommended practices provide guidance for employees, supervisors, and managers on recognizing fatigue in the workplace. From hours of service limits, guidance on working environments, and risk assessments, including their mitigation strategies, RP 755 is focused on safe operating conditions. By outlining the factors that impact fatigue, you can incorporate preventative measures, which are often industry specific, that can proactively manage your scheduling process while monitoring compliance regulations.
Lakshay, can you discuss the complexities of, say, NRC, FRMS, and how Indeavor software can assist in ensuring compliance for that?
Absolutely. So when working with the NRC's FRMS regulations, there are a few very key things that have to be kept in mind. We directly configure the fatigue rules in Indeavor, which ensures complete validation through any of the automated or manual planning processes I talked about earlier. This also means whether it's a mass-generated weekly or monthly schedule, or simply backfilling an unplanned absence or an increase in demand, Endeavor ensures that decision-making is fully compliant at all times. NRC FRMS is a very comprehensive regulatory framework that covers everything from facility design to emergency preparedness. And Endeavor, similarly, is also configurable such that it can help pivot planning from one of those modes to the other. For example, when you go from being online to being in an outage mode, it's a different set of skills and work and hours required, which means a different set of rules. And those pivots might have to happen very quickly in case of unplanned outages. So ultimately, Endeavor's automated reporting and real-time warnings provide an additional layer of transparency and security. And Endeavor also supports configurable fatigue forms to map to each organization's reporting requirements so that you can not only have a fully compliant system, but a system that almost works in the background, letting you know if anything's going to be wrong in advance so you can find alternatives and mitigate that situation from happening at all.
Amazing. Now, while regulatory compliance is crucial, it's not the only factor to consider. How maybe can organizations balance compliance with, say, other business objectives such as productivity and efficiency?
Yeah, Ryan, you're spot on, right? It's a delicate balance. However, using the right tools such as Indeavor software, organizations can streamline their operations while ensuring compliance. For example, our software can optimize scheduling to maximize productivity while still adhering to those safety regulations you have in place. We can also be an integral part of the business planning process by leveraging our clients' supply chain demands via an API to develop an optimal labor demand based on strict labor principles coded in our system. This allows you to adhere to your labor standards while profitably achieving your business objectives.
And I'm very glad you mentioned that, Jeff, because I also want to take this opportunity to add that Endeavor can also provide a lot of valuable data in an aggregated format via through its platform analytics that also regularly helps organizations identify areas of improvement and optimize their operations. And this is very key because that data available in a discrete manner or in an institutional way can be very manual and difficult to put together, let alone assess. Having it in a form that's clearly aggregated and curated to your specific reporting needs can be extremely powerful in not only improving compliance, reducing errors, but also reducing some of that administrative workload.
Speaking of technology, we all know that technology plays a pivotal role in modern regulatory compliance. Lakshay, can you discuss how Indeavor software is designed to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes? It's never static and stagnant, it's always evolving. But how does Indeavor software evolve with the regulatory landscape?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'd like to provide a real world example here that isn't from that long ago. So Endeavor, like I've mentioned before, is built with that flexibility and configurability in mind. We're not just aware of the nature of the complexities that come with some of these regulations and compliance structures, but also that you might have to pivot from one structure to another based on the environment you're operating in. So we continuously update our system to ensure that it complies with the latest regulatory requirements. And this means that our clients can be rest assured that they're using a tool that is always up to date according to the rules that have been set out by their own organization or any regulatory authorities. The example that I wanted to use here was that of COVID. When COVID first came on, and industries were quickly pivoting in making sure that there was social distancing in place and that there weren't too many people on the shop floor at the same time, the NRC published a new set of requirements that were targeted towards labor planning in that COVID environment. However, much of the world did not get a lot of heads up on when this pandemic was going to be onsetting and also how long it was going to last. And we were able to develop and release those new updated rules very quickly. And our customers and our clients were one of the first ones to adapt to those new COVID rules, which then stayed in place for a couple of years to come.
Well, that was a very impactful example. Thanks for sharing, Lakshay. While technology plays a crucial role in regulatory compliance, it's important to also remember that the human element is equally essential, right? So Jeff, can you discuss maybe the importance of employee training and awareness in ensuring compliance?
Sure, Ryan. Humans are our business. Our business moves forward through the humans, through the employees that work for us each and every day. And, employee training and awareness are fundamental. When employees understand the importance of compliance and their role in it, they're more likely to adhere to the regulations and report any potential issues. Regular training can help employees stay updated to the latest regulatory changes and best practices. Training, competency, and documentation are all mandatory components to various standards the industry is audited to. If your system of record is organized, easily accessible, and thorough, the likelihood of having any audit gaps is diminished.
And I love to add something to that. Speaking of, people being at the center of these operations, I think a culture of compliance also goes a long way. This means creating an environment where employees, excuse me, feel comfortable reporting any concerns or non-compliance issues without the fear of retribution. And this also comes with an enhanced visibility into people's schedules through the use of mobile devices. That way, employees know exactly when they're working, how many hours they're working, and they have full visibility into what their schedule entails, ensuring they can also self-govern some of those requirements that are in place, along with the system making sure that there are fail-safes in place.
That makes sense. Now, concerning the future of regulatory compliance, as technology continues to evolve, so will the regulatory landscape, right? Lakshay, what do you see as the future of regulatory compliance in oil and gas and that the nuclear/energy space?
Yeah, I think one of the very unique features that we're starting to see with the evolution of technology is that we're going to continue seeing an emphasis on data-driven compliance. Earlier, compliance used to be all about the reports and making sure all the information was captured to the nth degree, which was then generally manually compiled by the subject matter experts in that area at a great administrative cost. As technology advances, we will be able to collect, aggregate, and analyze more data that's then readily available for identification of potential risks and improving those compliance efforts. Additionally, I expect to see more use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to automate tasks and enhance these compliance efforts. Again, I believe the mantra for the future of compliance really is proactive mitigation versus reactive sort of firefighting. And I think some of this reporting analytics is going to become extremely important in predicting those patterns and those trends and ensuring that you're able to get across and ahead of those with the use of the right technology.
With that, so that was future. Let's move back to today, right? So let's explore some, examples. Jeff, Lakshay, do you guys have any real world examples of how Indeavor software is helping organizations today achieve that regulatory compliance and improve those operations?
Yeah, Ryan, I can start there. It reminds me of a conversation I just had. There's a site director for a large CPG company who understood their role in compliance management for their facility. By understanding their site's complexity, they leveraged Indeavor to help create labor demands that were aligned to their contract language. Prior to Indeavor, they struggled with overtime assignments due to inconsistency in OT rules. Their supervisors were slowly becoming ad hoc schedulers, and they were not able to focus on operations. Site performance was suffering. The number of scheduling-related grievances was growing. And Indeavor helped create consistency through automating the complex decisions by systematically running the decision through constraints that were entered into Indeavor. That not only saved valuable time, but also decreased scheduling-related grievances to near zero. Better compliance management drove productivity as well as a reduction in unnecessary costs for them.
Jeff, speaking on that, from your experience, is it common or frequent for supervisors in CPG to take on scheduling duties?
It is, frontline managers or supervisors, they carry the weight of the organization on their shoulders daily. The primary goal is to keep the organization moving. One common responsibility for them is to manage their labor resources. Scheduling issues never happen when you have support to help. Supervisors often need to manage competing priorities, but a lack of available labor always takes their time away from running the business. Talking about some of that responsibility, I've got one other example, if you don't mind. One of the clients that I talked to in the oil and gas industry was facing significant challenges administering their fatigue management policies. Supervisors were having to try to keep up with those rules, and it was just very difficult for them. So, by implementing Indeavor software, which again delivered that automated approach to managing fatigue management rules, they were able to identify and address potential fatigue-related risk in the present, thus reducing the likelihood of accidents and improving their overall employee morale. as the system of record, they are now using Indeavor to keep them in compliance, but also more importantly, keeping their employees safe.
And I'd love to add to that example as well. Speaking of kind of that fatigue-oriented industry, another client in nuclear slash energy was struggling to maintain compliance with their NRC FRMS requirements. Our software helped them streamline the record-keeping process, automate their scheduling to always adhere to those strict safety guidelines, and avoid costly penalties in the process. They also benefited from the organizational structure that's established in Indeavor to apply these practices across locations and drive towards a standardization that was impossible in the past due to the disjointed processes I'd mentioned before.
Thank you to our panelists, Jeff and Lakshay, for their insights. Thank you for attending, and we hope this webinar has provided you with valuable information on mastering regulatory compliance. Please reach out to us at sales@indeavor.com if you have any further questions or you would like to see Indeavor in action for yourself. Thank you.